What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Round 1 AFLW Game Day Squad show brought to you by the Game Day Society and Fantasy Fanatics. My name's Mark, and I'll be your host with Bales here. Bales, how you been?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, it's a busy time. You think that normally when like the Aussie rules and the rugby league is coming to an end and going towards finals, you think, oh yeah, put the feet up for a few months and relax. But no, not with game day. So we got AFLW starting tonight. We got the Premier League starting on Saturday. So it's all systems go. Plus we got finals fantasy on game day as well for both Aussie rules and rugby league. So looking forward to that. But there's plenty to get going. So been quite busy, mate. How about yourself? I'm sure it's exciting times.
Oh yeah, flat out as well. Especially two different competitions starting in the same weekend is a life killer basically. It's taken up all my time. It's a relationship killer as well. You know how it is.
Yep,
So
exactly.
it's a great time, but also a very stressful time because a couple of wrong decisions here and you're going to put yourself behind. So, um, in terms of AFLW prep, what kind of stuff have you been looking at to try and get ahead?
Yeah. Oh, and I just see Cows is tuning in here and saying, "Don't forget NFL bars." Yes, mate. Yeah, that is very short. There's plenty of drafts going on, so it doesn't stop. Really doesn't stop. There's fantasy sports galore, but yeah, really just I guess watching a few of those Pracky game highlights and replays, and I'm more focused on the first half for a lot of those games, but just watching a few of those players just to see sort of how they're going to perform. Maybe they've switched in a different role, or they've gone to a different club, or something like that. Or you just want to see, yep, cool, they're back in form again. You want to tick those premium players off. And then really like having a look at those scores from the Pracky games, seeing if the players are performing even in the Pracky games. I don't take into account like what someone like an Ebony Marinoff was going to practice game, right? Because she's not going to really try, I don't think, too hard when it comes to Pracky games. Whereas when it gets to real stuff, I think that's when she go big. But I know that she scored well over 130 game day squad points even in the Pracky game. So she doesn't know the meaning of a Pracky game. Maybe it's just every time she goes
Just
out,
switches off, never.
yeah, exactly. Just doesn't switch off. So just doing that sort of stuff. And then I guess looking at the stats from last year. So looking at the players that were, because obviously the tough thing about the first round of game day squad is everyone's average is zero. And you can't sort by last year's average or anything like that. So you've got to really like look at the last year's scores and go, okay, who were the better performers? There's also some players that have changed positions. So you got to check those players and see where their average compared to I'll just use like Emma Swanson, for example, midfielder last year. So she was obviously down this because she played more of a defensive role. This year in game day squad, she's a defender. So I'm looking at her average compared to the other defenders. So just sort of looking through that and then really picking the squad for round one, because it'll be a lot easier for people when you can sort by average and you can sort of skim down and go through the players that you like and look at matchups. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm focused on. How about yourself? I'm sure that there's been a little bit of prep as well on your end.
Yeah, just lots of preseason games. I tend to always look too much into the preseason though as one of my terrible traits where I just look at the averages, sort by top forwards and be like, okay, these guys are going to be the guns this year. When obviously that's not going to be the case. But yeah, just lots of the preseason stuff, trying to keep up to date with just what's happening at the clubs as well. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of reporting on the AFLW at the moment, especially while the men's season's still on.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to find those little things like who's getting midfield minutes in the practice games, who's in training, who's training with what groups, things like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
hopefully it all pays off. But what we're going to do this episode is we're just going to run through each game, basically talk about any fantasy relevant players, talk about who we think might get up, things like that. And then we're going to do some hot takes with the rounds and then just run through our squads. So we'll start it off with the game for tonight, which is crazy to say tonight, but it's Carlton versus Collingwood, huge game. Uh, but how fantasy relevant do you think this one will be?
I believe at this stage I don't have anyone in my squad from either side. I just think that there's probably none of those premiums that I guess are sort of right up towards the top sort of few in their position. So I'm just having a look at the team here. There's no one that's there that I'm really looking at, and I'm sort of thinking, well, could you maybe take a stab at someone? But I guess there's a lot of questions with Carlton and Collingwood tonight in terms of the roles of players, where they're going to be playing, and if they can score sort of in line with those top players that we have in each position. So at the moment, I don't currently have any, but I guess the two I'm probably looking at is like Ruby Slicer, she was a defender. I'd be really interested as a defender, but as a mid, it just makes it really difficult with those top end mids going well over 100. I don't know if Ruby can get to that average, and Darcy Vester is probably the other one, the forward line, that I'll be watching how they go in the defense, because they'll be playing a defensive role, it looks like, to start the season with Gab Pound out for 6 to 7 weeks. So I'll be seeing how they go. Maybe I'll put them into my squad next week, but I think week one, I'll probably just have a watch and see how they go.
There's a couple that I've got who aren't in my squad still, but maybe for next round. One is Frederick, who's interestingly named back in the forward line as opposed to the ruck, which a couple of, was it 2 seasons ago? I think she earned an all-star card in the forward line for GameDay squad. So that could be an interesting change, seeing how she goes. Obviously, she's still listed as a ruck, though, in GameDay squad. So there's got to be a few big names to compete for that position in my team. But on the radar. The other one is Kalinda Howard, who's coming back from 12 months out of the game. Trent moved over to Collingwood, so it's her first game back. Interesting to see how she goes in the fourth line.
Yeah, exactly. And probably the other one as well you mentioned with Sabrina Frederick, but the one that's really got that number one ruck right at the moment is Imogen Barnett, and I believe she is available as a forward in GameDay squad. So she'll be someone that, again, I'll watch to see how that split goes between Frederick and Barnett. And if Barnett has the lion's share, maybe 60, 65, 70%, then I think she could be a pretty good forward to be looking at, because we don't get too many of those rucks in our forward line. Obviously, Frederick a couple of years ago was great. And then if we can get Barnett maybe this year, that could be a bit of a sneaky gem for people to keep an eye on.
Beautiful. Next game tonight also is coming through. It was West Coast Gold Coast, anyways.
The slide's not treating you very well there.
There we go. Yep.
There we
West
go.
Coast versus Gold Coast, Battle of the Coast. A few players in here who definitely should be in a lot of sides, I would think. West Coast, obviously, you got Charlotte Thomas down back, and a few other options as well. Gold Coast, Rowbottom, interestingly named as the ruck for Gold Coast. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, I did. I had a bit of a laugh at that when I saw that there, but then see Gregory, who is the ruck, named as the ruck rover. So that was quite interesting. Yeah. But to be fair, Charlie Rowbottom,
I could see her doing it.
I was just about to say, yeah, because she's so big, I could just easily see Rowbottom being a ruck. So it's really not out of the realms of possibility that could happen. But yes, I did find that a little bit funny with reading the team sheets.
Yeah. So anyone else on your radar apart from those two? Obviously, a couple of star cards.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, I think Rowbottom and Charlie Thomas are the two that, stand out. They're obviously top sort of few in the line. I expect both to be there again this year, and I think both will go well. And I'd highly encourage teams to look at starting both. And I've got both locked in. The other one I do like tonight is Emma Swanson, who I did mention has changed positions from mid to defence. So a few people might sort of forget that Emma Swanson has got defender status in GameDay squad, but she's someone I'm pretty keen. Former captain, going back in defence. I think she's just obviously got a knack of finding the ball and can pretty much do it all. So I'm pretty keen to start her as well. So it means we might have a couple of West Coast Eagles in my defence. So yeah, this one's certainly a few more relevant players in from a GameDay squad point of view.
Neve McLaughlin.
Yes,
down back for Gold Coast.
Yep, another one I do like. I probably want to see how she goes, because I think in other formats, people have been looking at Neve McLaughlin. So GameDay squad, I'm really interested to see if she can really sort of match it with those top defenders, right? So if you look at some of the averages last year, like you're looking at around the 70 sort of mark, 75 to be amongst the top sort of 5 or so. So if Neve McLaughlin can put out a good performance in the first game, she could definitely be someone in the certainly put herself in the calculations my squad moving forward.
Yeah, well, she went 106 in the pre-season game, so I think she definitely has it in her. Just how much you take of that score, but her role looks pretty nice, I think.
Yeah, well, new captain as well for Gold Coast, so I think that she'll take that role with both hands and hopefully put up some good scores for us.
Beautiful. Next game of the round tomorrow night is Sydney versus Richmond. Again, few fantasy players in this one. Who have you got?
Yeah, so Laura Gardner's the first one, obviously, that comes to mind for Sydney. Obviously, we know how good she's had a bit of a tougher year last year with a hand injury towards the back end of the year, put up a few lower scores because of that. And I just think with Ali Morfitt being out, a few sort of other midfielders out, Laura Gardner sort of almost had to do it all, didn't have a huge amount of help. Whereas I think this year she got a little bit more help. Sophia Hurley obviously broke out last year. You got Chloe Malloy back. Ali Morfitt will be there. Then you got Montana Ham, hopefully full fitness playing midfield. So she'll have more help, which most people go, oh, well, that's probably going to take the ball away from her. But I think it's going to be a good thing. So I think she's going to be able to not have to rely just on Laura Gardner in the midfield and Sophia Hurley, and that's it. They'll have other people in there to help out. So I think Laura Gardner will go quite well. I mentioned Montana Ham as a forward. I'm pretty keen to start her if she's got this midfield role. I think she can be someone that could be a bit of a surprise in terms of who didn't average in the top 6 or so last year, could sort of break into that top 6. And then from a Richmond point of view, I don't really think you can go past Mon Conti if you're looking at a midfielder there. So I've probably got a couple of names ahead of her this week, but she's always won right. She won the AFLW Best and Fairest a couple of years ago. She's an absolute gun, obviously multi-code superstar as well. So she's someone that definitely got to consider. And against Sydney, she could start off with a pretty good score.
Yeah, agreed. I think Conti's probably the only one from Richmond that I would be looking at though at this
Yeah.
stage. You mentioned Morford. Do you think she's playable round one, or do we need to keep an eye on her for a couple of games first to see how she eases back in?
I think she's definitely playable round one. I think it's a decent matchup against, I think Poppy Kelly would be Richmond's ruck this week. So, yeah, I think that she could be a fairly good option. I've probably got a couple other options. Obviously, we'll talk about, obviously, Mim Strom, which in the Freo game, and there's a couple of others. But she'd probably be she's in the top 5, that's for sure. I think that it just depends where am I going to play? Who am I going to play this week? I think I'm going a couple of other rucks instead. But yeah, she's definitely someone that you can play. What about you? What do you think about Ali Morfitt? Are you keen to start around one?
I'm not starting her, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't start her. I'm just a bit more cautious, I think. And if, like you said, there's a bunch of other good options to start ahead of her. I think we'll talk about it later, but I think Strom is just going to be R1 for a while, and then we'll slotting in a ruck for that second position. But yeah, what about Malloy? Have you got her in this week, or
Yeah, so she's someone I'm probably less keen to start the year. I just think coming off an ACL injury, and I mentioned with the midfield, like you got like Gardner, Sophia Hurley, Montana Ham, even Cynthia Hamilton runs through there as well if she does get up. Obviously, she's listed as a test on the injury report, and you've got a number of other girls that can run through there. So I just think coming off the ACL, I think they're going to ease her back in. We know she can play forward and play forward really well. So there could be games where she kicks 3 goals, 4 goals, and she puts up a really good score. I probably just want to see it for a week first. Like a lot of people will probably start her this week. I think GameDay squad, they'll go to the name as a forward and go, look at what Chloe Malloy's done in the past. But I just want to see how they sort of play her to begin the year, because I do think she will be eased in a little bit.
like Shirley went, I think, 18 GameDay squad points in the preseason game. Obviously, definitely eased into that one, but
I think she played the first half, I believe. I think she's
still 18 points is a bit, you know, it's too hard to tell based on that game to be able to make a decision on round one, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't got her in, but we'll show the squads later. All right, next up we have Geelong and North Melbourne. Now this one has some huge names in it, and I assume you're probably starting all of them. We'll start off with non-midfielders though, because obviously this game is going to have a lot of our midfield in it. Is there anyone outside of the midfield you're starting in this game?
Yeah, so I got a couple of forwards. So I've got Ash Maloney in here. Obviously, tough matchup against North Melbourne. Obviously, North, we know reigning premiers from last year. I just think that she's got such a high ceiling against anyone that I think she doesn't really matter with matchups for her. I think she can just get it done regardless of opponent. So I don't want to miss out on a potential ceiling there. And she's one of those players, like think in the men's format, Sean Manor, who, funny enough, another Geelong player, is quite a rare player to have. Whereas I think Ash Malone is also another rare player to have in game day squad. And if you've got her, I think she's almost more important almost than Sean Manor in the men's, because a lot of other forwards in the men's you can play, whereas in the women's, I think Ash Maloney being one of those top few forwards, I think she can get off to a good start. And I've also got Alice O'Loughlin. Didn't play the Pracky game. I think she's had an injury or two in the preseason, but she wasn't listed on the injury report. So if she's named tonight, I'm still pretty comfortable playing her because she really broke out last year and had a very good year. And for North Melbourne, I think that she's going to get opportunity, and I think she can put up a good score.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the same as mine, those two. And yeah, agree 100% with everything you just said, basically. What about the midfield, though? Now, obviously, you've got the two, Garner and Riddell. But Prasparkas, huge preseason. Is
Yeah.
she like back to top form, back to the top six, do you think?
Well, that was incredible. Over 40 touches and well over
Yeah.
150 points, and in the shorter games as well. When you can get a score of like that, and then if you've got salary cap on her in a classic team or a challenger team or whatever, that just rockets you right up the rankings for the week. It's really hard to fit her in. Like we'll go through our squads after, but I've got 6 names that are proven 100+ year-on-year performers. And Prasparkas did it a few years ago. Obviously, last year dealt with injuries. North Melbourne round one isn't necessarily a great matchup, but North Melbourne are a team that don't tag. They back their own system in. So I still think that Prasparkas can go well. And I think that if you're going to go for a pod, she could be a real pod. But I've just got a couple of other names ahead of her though. And two of those names, as you mentioned, that pretty much there's 3 midfield locks, I think, every single week. And that's obviously Ebony Marinoff, and then Jazz Garner and Ash Riddell. I just think Ash Riddell and Jazz Garner both rack up the ball. I watched that game, North Melbourne Essendon, and seemed like Ash Riddell had the ball on a string, and Jazz Garner was just doing everything. So there was nothing in that game to make me think that either of them are going to regress. If not, I arguably think they might even go maybe a couple of points better than last year, which is crazy to think of how good they look. So yeah, I think they're both locks, and I assume that you would agree with those two as well.
Thoughts for me. Any concerns though with Garner going forward, or rumours of Garner going forward a bit more this season? For me, I don't
Yeah, I
really
heard.
care because she'll just kick a bunch of goals wherever she is, and if
Yeah,
she's going forward, that's where the ball's likely going to be for North. So it's probably, if anything, still going to be on ball. Uh, yeah, what do you think?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that even if she goes forward, kick 2, 3 goals, like she's just that good a player. But I don't think that there'll be games where, so last year we saw it where if North Melbourne were up by a fair margin in the last quarter, she'd play forward for that last quarter, and then she'd also go off and spend a bit of time on the bench, and they'd sort of rest her and not worry about playing her. So that would, I guess, cap ceiling in some games, but even still, I don't think it's going to matter. That she could be a full forward, and I think she'd be the number one averaging forward, I reckon. So, yeah, she's just gun, and I don't think it'll matter too much.
Cool. Next up is GWS Essendon. Um, there's probably a few names here. Bonnie Too good. Um, what did you think of her pre-season match? Different role, but maybe that was just because of the state of the game playing against North. Um, any concerns about where she's playing, what she's doing, or just get her in?
She averaged well over 100 game day squad points 2 seasons ago, and she was the F1 by a bit of a distance. And last year, obviously, a couple of early injuries that really sort of hampered her year, and she never really got back to 100%. Although she looked all right, took some really good contested marks against North Melbourne, and against North Melbourne, it's such a hard matchup, right? And I think that she'll still have that role where she'll roll up the ground. She'll take those marks. She'll get back into defence if needed. Like we saw that a little bit towards the end of the game in the Pracky game last week, that if she is needed in defence, she can roll back. So that'll be something I'll be keeping on, because that's where she really put up those ceiling scores a couple of seasons ago when she rolled back and was almost like an extra midfielder around the ground. So yeah, I don't know if she can get back to the 100 average if she's going to be playing a lot more of that, as you say, that deeper forward role, but I think she's still very much in the calculations for probably the number one scoring forward this season.
If she does change roles, she's still going to be in at least the top six, so it's not really going to matter anyway. We're still going to need to play her. Um, Now, Goldsworthy is probably the most talked about name preseason, I'd say, just in terms of obviously had the role change from midfield to forward, which is great for us. Any concerns though? She didn't really do much in the warm up match. Was she being managed, or is it just her new role?
Yeah, it is a concern. I've still got her in my squad just because of the upside that's there with Goldsworthy. The concerning thing was I don't even think she tended to centre bounce from what I saw. She might have attended one or two that I missed, but she was pretty much a forward. And last year she was a CBA mid that would just go and be in the CBA and then go straight forward. So this year they've just gone, no, we're not even going to put you in the CBA. We're going to put you just deep forward and that's it. So that's really going to hamper her scoring because we know when she's a mid, she can rack up the ball. And being a forward in GameDay squad's great. And I'm going to start her round one just because of what I've seen in the past from her. But if she puts up a poor score to start, and this could be something where if you want to go a bit unique in round one, maybe fading Goldsworthy for round one could be a play. Like you go, well, everyone's going to play her because she's the name that's there and she was the one of the top averaging forwards last year. Maybe if she just plays deep forward, you go, well, I'll go for someone else. Maybe you go for another player that's got more of a midfield role or a better role up the ground. So I'm slightly concerned with Zali Goldsworthy, but I want to get your thoughts on. I think the big one that GameDay squad coaches have got to watch out for is Maddie Gay. So she's obviously not playing this for the start of the season with an ACL strain, which is not if you hit ACL, you think, oh, okay, that's a season over, but it's a strain. So I don't even know how long that's going to be out for, but that's obviously a big
Given it's a
hole.
12-week season, that could still be season over.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
problem with AFLW. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think? There's anyone of note that could take over that role? Because I think Maddie Gay was locked in all of our squads, right? She was the number one averaging
Yeah.
defender. I thought there was upside even this year for her. But what are your thoughts? Is there anyone relevant
Yeah.
there, or do you think it's just maybe a pass for Essendon defenders for the time
I
being?
think it's a pass for at least the first few rounds for me anyway, just to see if anyone emerges. I don't think it's worth taking a punt on
Yeah, yeah,
because
agreed.
like playing a defender, especially against GWS as well, who potentially will struggle a little bit again this season. I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean, who knows, basically. But I don't think it's worth it.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Anyone else in this game that you're looking at?
Well, I had a look as well. I've got a game day squad. We did like what was it? Would have been towards the end last year. Had the prize card draft, and I finally got my prize card added into the club, and it looks pretty cool. First ever prize card. Elise
Very
Parker
nice.
could be
Oh, yeah.
someone that you maybe take a bit of a punt on. Obviously, nickname of Piggy Parker around the fantasy circle. She's a gun, and I think that she's just struggled a little bit, just being in a GWS team that's been sort of struggling a little bit. But
Mhm.
she's got a little bit more help. Beck Beeston had a good year last year. If Goldsworthy does spend time in there, they got Taylor Levy from the Crows that will go in there as well. So maybe with a bit of extra help, she might be able to take her average of well over 100 and maybe challenge a few of those girls in the top sort of 6 to 7. But to start the year, I've obviously got the prize card in, I think, my challenger squad for this round, but for probably the start of the season, probably in like classic and starter, I'm probably looking at a couple of other options, but she's always an option with a decent matchup against the Bombers.
Yeah, I think she went 139 in preseason, so big score. And reassuringly, there was a 20 kicks to 10 handballs, so
Yeah,
that's always nice for us. The other player probably in this game is Madison Prasparkas, who's obviously Georgie's sister. Struggled through the preseason, but played North. Obviously, had a quality season a couple of years ago, dropped off a bit last season. Is she just watch and wait? Maybe keep an eye on her. She's obviously still very young, so
yeah. I think it is a watch and wait for me just to start the year, just with a few other midfields I'm probably starting, but there's certainly someone that I'll be looking at moving forward because Maddie Praspas is someone that's if she's got a great matchup, she can put up a pretty big score. So probably not start the year, but yeah,
yeah,
certainly someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on because you've always got to consider some of these mids because they could be some real pods because mids in AFLW, I think we can probably sort of almost lock in a few each week, meaning there's only probably a couple of spots, so you can probably be a little bit different. So Manny Spark is certainly someone that can fit that bill in a good matchup.
And speaking of prize cards, she was actually my prize card from last season. So hopefully she does come good, but I don't. I probably will start her just because, it's a prize card, but that might be at my detriment. Next up, Bulldogs versus Melbourne. Sorry, big name in this, Katie Hoare, but did notice she was on the injury list as a maybe for this round. Have you seen any news on that? It wasn't even on my radar that she was maybe going to miss the round.
Yeah, I think it was bone bruising is what they listed it up as on the injury report. That it does concern me because like bone bruising is one that I feel like because I heard shout out to Jono from Free Kick. They were chatting about him and then we're chatting about this last night, and with a lot of injuries to Melbourne at the moment, like there's almost talk of like if they get any more injuries, they might have to get like a couple of replacement players, which is crazy that we haven't even started the year yet, and they've already got a lot of injuries, which is an unfortunate way to start the year. But just if she does play, she's probably playing through pain, might be managed. I see someone that I was pretty keen on in terms of could be a real differential on the like to starters, maybe M6 on the bench for the first week and have a real look at. But I just think with that, I just want to see how she goes first because she was going to be a problem, right? Because she's a forward last year. Everyone started their weekly, but this year's a mid. We know that obviously I'm guilty of it. You see another player change position, you go, I'm not as keen. Like you see a forward or a defender lose their status and go to midfield, and like I'm probably not going to start them. But I think K Horse is someone you can definitely start in the midfield. But I just think the matchup was great as well, right? Against the Dogs, you think she's probably going to go quite well. I don't know. How about you? Are you probably steering clear, or do you think the matchup could maybe put it into the favour of maybe starting her?
I'm steering clear, but probably one of the positives is given the matchup, they could just sit her up forward and she'll kick it back, and then she'll still be, big score.
Yeah,
that's like kind of how versatile she is. But yeah, I think it's too risky to give up on my midfield spots for.
Yeah,
and yeah, I can't afford it. Anyone else in this game?
there's probably no like sort of locks or anyone that I'm probably starting in terms of this week, but I guess there's a couple of names you could keep an eye on. So Georgia Stathis for the Dogs was pretty good in the preseason game, and barring that game she had last year where she scored under 10 game day squad points, which is crazy for a full game. She was pretty good after that. Like she had a last 3 average, I think, over 80 in game day squad. So she's someone that you can definitely look at in defence there. And probably maybe Taylor Harris and Ian Zanker are two to keep an eye on in the forwards. Probably not starting them week one, but Taylor Harris and Ian Zanker have both had their injury concerns over the last sort of 12 months or so. So if they can both stay fit, I think the Dogs matchup is there for the taking. I think one of them can go well. I just don't know which one, and I probably want to see which one looks the best in the round one instead of taking a stab at going, I'll go Taylor Harris, and then Ian Zanker puts up a big score or vice versa. So I think they're probably the ones I'm keeping on. Anyone from you?
Yeah, those names. And I also had my eye on Paxman as well, who is someone who's always been a maybe for me. But, again, looked decent in preseason, had a pretty good role, I thought. So she's on the radar. I just don't know whether I can fit her in, basically.
Yeah, Ellie Blackburn's probably the other one that had an early injury last year in round 3 or 4, I think it was, might have been round 4 with the double game week against West Coast, and she started pretty well, and she's got a good run to start the season, so she could be someone again. We talked about like Maddie Prasparkas, even Georgie Prasparkas, girls like that that are sort of could be in a mix of any week. That I think Ellie Blackburn's someone to keep an eye on as well.
I think that's a good call. So only 3 more games to go through. Brisbane versus Hawthorn. One big name that stood out in the preseason was Conan down back for Brisbane.
Yeah.
Went big. I think 124 game day squad points as a defender, which is great. 21 touches, 9 tackles. Is that a one-off or is that a new role, do you think?
I'm pretty keen. I've got Conan in my starting squad to start the season. like I sort of look at it and go, well, if she wasn't going to play midfield, she wouldn't have played in the Pracky game. What would be the point? Like, just you get either some younger players in there, but being the captain, I think she could definitely have a big role in that midfield. Like, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know she has scored quite well in the past playing the midfield, particularly I think it was a final series. It might have been not last year, maybe the year before, potentially. So if Bree Conan's in that midfield, I think she could be someone that really puts her hand up. That you look at the names from last year, the top 6-7 defenders, and you go start those. But Bree Conan could be someone that could come from outside and really finish quite high in the defensive rankings. So I think it's a really good shout. I'm pretty keen to start her. And I guess if you're not sure, maybe you could watch and see, because Hawthorn's not necessarily a great matchup to start. But I think if Bree Cohn's going to play this midfield role, I think it's not going to matter what matchup, because she loves to tackle. Like, that's the thing, when she's in the midfield, she tackles a lot, and we know that's what can really boost up these scores.
Ali Anderson, what were your thoughts on her through the preseason? A bit underwhelming in the practice match. Did you notice any managed minutes, or is that maybe a new role as she kind of not matures, but kind of gets to the end of her career?
Yeah, I think she'll be fine. I think that was just a pracky game that I'm not. Again, I mentioned that, like with Noffy, that maybe she never sort of turns off sort of if it's a pracky game or not, and Jazz Gunn and Riddell sort of did the same thing. But there were a few mids that sort of didn't do a huge amount. That I'm not too concerned. If you're pretty keen on Ali Anderson, I think that she's a good start, really, no matter what. I don't have her in my squad this week, but again, she's in that same mix. There's like 4 mids that are, as I said, locked in most weeks, or 5. And then there's about 10 other mids that you could play any week, and you got to fit, only got 2 spots for those other spots. So she just fits into that category that really any week that I could play her. So, yeah, she's someone that's in the mix. But someone that I've currently got, and I want to get your thoughts on, was Lucy Wales. So she was the top scoring ruck from the Pracky game, and we saw that ruck scores were down with the sort of less stoppages. Holding the ball has obviously changed as well with the interpretation. So there might be less points for rucks, but she seemed to do a fair bit around the ground as well. Was she someone that you're going to be looking to start potentially early in the season?
Yeah, she's in for me. I think she's just kind of maturing as well as she goes. I think there's, I think I mentioned it before. I've got like Strom at the moment is just ruck one.
Yeah.
And then there's probably 2 or 3 that sit in that second spot. And I think it's just Lucy Wales, because of her preseason performance, looked good without getting the hit outs. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah. What about Lucas Rod? Obviously, big name from last year, scored well pre-season. I think she has to be a lock for most people.
Yeah.
Any concerns?
Slight concern. They were starting a lot forward as well, and had slightly a different role. It wasn't as much of that defensive role. There's still times where they were back in defense, but I guess that's a concern. Right, I'm still starting them. I still got them in my squad, but that'd probably be my one concern, is that maybe they won't be the number 1 averaging defender this year. Maybe you might have a few other names go above them. So that's probably my only slight concern. But I've got to Lucas Rod to start the season.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about them, to be honest. I think they will be up there as probably top 3 defenders. So I don't really have to think too hard if that's the case. They just start them. Yeah. The other name that's kind of come in and out of my team a bit was Bodie for Hawthorn up forward. Kicked a couple, 2 goals, 2, I think it was. So I just worry about AFLW forwards who rely on goals for scoring GameDay score points. So I don't have her in my side, but it's one in a matchup I probably would be looking to.
Yeah. I think with the Brisbane matchup, probably just for the week, I'm probably not looking to start Greta Bay, but I think she's definitely someone that, I think she had the highest score of any forward in a game last season when she kicked 5, and she has got a bit of a wing role as well, so she can sort of play at the ground a bit. So she's got that role, to start. I think there's definitely going to be matchups where she's got a good matchup. I'm definitely going to start her in my forward line.
So next game, St Kilda Adelaide.
Here we go.
We've
My
talked about
Chloe.
Marinoff. We've talked about Marinoff plenty. Anything more that we can add about Marinoff? She's a gun. She's tackling monster. I just imagine her like walking down the supermarket aisle, just tackling people. Um, I can't think of any reason you wouldn't start her, even if she was injured. I probably, if she was injured and named, I'd still be playing her, 100%.
Yeah, just with Ebony Marinoff, for anyone that's new to game, that's why if you're watching her along and you haven't played AFLW yet, Ebony Marinoff, just leave her at M1 and that's it. I think that she's a lock to have. If you've got if you're playing classic, obviously the most you can put is platinum. Platinum Marinoff is where you put I know that it's probably a lot on a player to spend, but it doesn't matter. You just put as much salary as you possibly can. So if it's classic, you put a platinum. If it's challenger, you put a diamond or whatever you can get, prize card, all star. If it's contender, I believe it's up to gold there. So if you got a gold Marinoff, that's where the gold Marinoff goes. So just as much salary as possible, lock her in every week and don't think twice.
In saying that, don't stress if you don't have the highest multiplier, because her bronze will outscore a lot of diamonds. That's the thing.
Yeah.
She averaged, I think it was 20 more points than the next highest averaging player in the competition last season. So I reckon she's the most valuable game day squad player across any code, just because of the difference between her and the next best player.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yep.
Yeah. So apart from Marinoff, who obviously is a lock for all of us, who else are we looking through for your girls?
Yeah. Lock in every Crows player. No, I'm just joking. No,
Ah,
don't lock in every Crows player. Now, there are a few. There's a few. Obviously, Chelsea Randall's now listed as a defender. I just think that her upside, regardless, she's someone that can play really any role, and she finds a way to score. She might not get to the 90 average, 100 average that she might have got to in the past playing that more midfield role, but even if she's playing defense, I think she's someone that's a really good pick. Week in, week out. I think Anne Hatchard is in that same category of the mids that can fit into
often forgotten about
back end. And forgot about. I was partly hoping she did play a bit of forward time last year, and I was hoping that maybe sneakily she'd be available as a forward or something, because that would be really handy, and I wouldn't have to think about not starting her, because obviously being a Crows player, I'd love to put her in there. But yeah, currently don't have her at the moment, but she's certainly someone there. And Caitlin Gould being the other one up forward, had a great year last year, probably the best contested mark in the AFLW, or at least one of there, and has a bit of ruck time as well, especially in the forward 50. And I think people have mentioned with the sort of umpires not waiting to ball it up and to nominate, there might be times where Caitlin Gould essentially just takes all of the sort of forward half ruck stoppages if Jess Allen can't get to the ruck contest. So I think there could be some extra hit out points for Caitlin Gould, and if she can replicate what she did last year, obviously got an all-star card last year, I think she's someone in the forward line that is quite a valuable asset. So they're probably the 3 or 4 Crows I'm looking at. Anyone from the Crows or even the Saints that you're looking at?
Those Crows players, I think, are the ones that I've been considering. Saints-wise, a few, obviously, Watson.
Yeah.
I think she did exactly what I was expecting her to do in the preseason match. She had a decent role, commanded the back line, 81 points.
The only thing I wanted to see, though, that I didn't love necessarily was Ella Friend was taking a lot of the kick-ins, and I thought that Serene Watson would be on the kick-ins. So I guess that's something to watch. Maybe was that a practice game thing just to get Ella Friend a few disposals and sort of get her into the game, or is that a sign of maybe Serene Watson is just maybe the general not going to take those kick-ins? Because you look at some of the other defenders, like a Charlie Thomas, for example, she takes pretty much all the kick-ins for West Coast, and she is the general. So I guess the ceiling might be higher for Charlie Thomas. So I guess that's the one thing I'll be watching with Serene Watson, that I'm fingers crossed that she can take some more of those kick-ins. But yeah, I think she's a start, though, regardless.
Yeah, sometimes it's almost better to receive the kick-in, so where you get the mark and the kick. So maybe that could be a slight benefit, but you're right, it is a bit of a concern compared to the guaranteed points. Um, who else did I have? Wardlaw up front is a big name in the comp. I'm not going to play her against Adelaide, obviously, because I can't see St Kilda being, forward too much this game. Uh, but she did tend to get up the ground a little bit. She looked good. It was very wet though in their preseason game, so kind of hard to judge.
Yeah,
Um, but someone who I can definitely see coming into my side a lot this season, just not this week.
yeah, definitely.
Um, and the last one was Patrikios as well for St Kilda in the midfield. Um, probably not good enough to be playing in my side, but someone I'm definitely keeping an eye on as she kind of gets her eye back in the game after having, I think it was all of last season off.
Yeah,
She looked pretty decent, especially in the first half against who they play,
Freo.
Fremantle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Any Saints that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, yeah, Serene Watson's the one that I'm starting in defence, and Wardlaw. Just if it wasn't against the Crows, I'd probably be definitely looking at starting her. Probably just not this week. And yeah, Patrikios, keep an eye on. I just wonder, can she get? I think she averaged over 90 in season 2 or something, or season 5. There was an no, it wouldn't have been season 2. It would have been season 5, or something like that, where she averaged over 90 and looked really good, and then it's obviously had a few sort of injury and stuff to deal with. So she can get, and that was in shorter games. So she can, shorter games, right? If you translate that to a long game, she might be able to get to that 100 average. So I guess just, as you say, watch and see how she goes, and could be someone to look at. But just to start the season, I think we have better options in the midfield.
Yeah. And the last game of the round will be Port Adelaide versus Fremantle. Now, Fremantle, obviously, a lot of big fantasy names coming back in to contention this year, with obviously Bowers and Stannard. Um, Port Adelaide, though, not a heap of people I'm looking at apart from Ella Head from come across this season to Port.
Yeah.
Looks good in the back line. That's about the only option I can see that myself playing for Port. What about
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, it's just that Port have got don't really score many fantasy points. They're just pretty much just a run and go sort of team. Don't really chip it around much. There's no real players that, like, I think Abby Derrick's been their highest averaging player, but she's not really going to sort of average that. I think she could at some point average decently, like over 100, but maybe she might not get to that level at least this season. And Matilda Schultz probably someone in the ruck week to week, maybe good matchup. You could definitely look at playing with Levicki not there. I think that'll just mean that there's not as much of that chop out ruck. So Matilda Schultz will get a lot more of the ruck share. I think Ella Heads, as you said, great option. I think take a lot of those kick-ins and be that main distributor back there. So she's someone that could average quite well for us in defence. I've currently got her starting at the moment. But in terms of like the Freo side, right, it's going to be good to have Kiara Bowles back, because she was I guess the number one before Marinoff there, before she obviously missed last year with pregnancy, and then had a couple of injuries to deal with the year before. But if she can stay fully fit, we know she's an absolute gun, and she's in the same conversation as Marinoff, Garner, Riddell, like the top sort of 4 or 5 mids. So I'm starting her to begin the season. I think she'll go quite well. And you mentioned Stannard there as well, that as a forward probably didn't score as much in the Pracky game, but still had a decent role in the midfield. Don't think she's going to get to that sort of the high 70s, low 80s average that she did have a couple of years ago, because as you mentioned, Ash McCarthy's there now. Gabby Newton's in the midfield. You got Stannard there. You got Bowers. So they're not all going to be able to score really well. And we know all 4 can score well when in the role. So that'll just be, I guess, a watch. But as available as a forward, I think she's a pretty good pick to start the year at least.
I think from what I saw of her, there's some concerns that she won't go as high as we'd like, but I don't think there's enough concerns that I'm not going to start her, because in the forward line, the competition's obviously not as high for those positions. So I think it's one of those risk versus benefits where the benefit is definitely there.
Yeah. And then what? Mimstrom, lock in the
Yeah, of
ruck,
course.
pretty much
Yeah,
lock every week.
Miss
A little bit like Marinoff. Even if the scores for rucks go down, she's just going to keep pumping out really good scores. Even if her average goes from around that 120 mark slightly down to a 105, 110, she's probably still going to be at least 10 points clear of. Maybe not. Maybe if Lucy Wales takes a step up, maybe that might be closer. But at least to the R3, R4, I think there'll be a bit more of a gap there. So I think she's a pretty good start there. Emma O'Driscoll, any interest there? She obviously had a bit of a down year last year, but former All-Australian defender. I think had an All-Star card from a couple of years ago. Any interest to start her, or do you think she's one that you might want to see a little bit first and then maybe start if she puts up some good scores?
That's what I was thinking. I can't find a spot for her in my side at the moment. So, what about you?
Yeah, someone I've looked at, but yeah, I think I'm of this same opinion. Probably just looking and watching for a week or so first, and puts up a good score, then I'll definitely consider it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that's all the games. So exciting to actually start watching some AFLW again. We're going to move on to your call of the week. So, do you have any kind of controversial calls or big takes that you think might happen this week, especially round one? There's going to be a lot of calls that coaches are going to have to make. What's your big call for the week?
Tricky ones. Probably two ones. Obviously, one just I guess look at the rucks with the scoring this week. That's probably the one. Like, are they going to take as big a dip as what we think with the new rule change and everything like that? And I think probably that my main call of the week is I'm probably probably the fade of Chloe Malloy, just to watch and see how she goes returning from injury. She plays a lot forward. She might not be someone that we start a lot for at least maybe the first sort of 3-4 weeks of the season, but she's someone I'm sure at some point will be starting regardless. And maybe even you could even maybe throw Goldsworthy in there. If you want to go real like sort of hot take sort of pod there, that could be the one where you fade Goldsworthy, the number one forward from last year, and you look at playing someone else. If you think she's going to just play deep forward and not really get up the ground at all, that could certainly be a play. I don't know if I'm gutsy enough to do it round one. Probably want to be safe, vanilla, just get off to a solid start and then pick some pods from there. But that could be something if you really want to get off to a good start or potentially be a bit back. That could be a sort of big call you make.
Actually, my call of the week is that I think Goldsworthy is going to burn a lot of coaches this week. So I'm actually not starting her,
There
which
you go. Yeah.
is, yeah. So we'll share the teams now, but I just can't. I can't see her going big enough that it's going to be significant, but I can see her going low enough that it's going to be significant. So I think that's where my head's at the moment.
Yeah.
Now, bring up my squad now just uh, to show you guys. Is that come up for you there, Babs?
Yeah, I see that one. Oh, geez, that's a bloody Charlie Robot prize card there. That's
It might be, yeah. That is very, very happy with that one. But this is my round one side at the moment. I think we talked about most of these players, but is it? Oh, actually, I don't think we talked about Brooke Tonnen for Adelaide up front. Had you thought about her at all? Or them?
I did. I thought about it for sure. Don't currently have her in my squad, which, as I said, probably is sort of weird for me not having a Crows player in my side that I'm interested in. But I guess just want to see, like, she had a lot of intercepts against Melbourne, but didn't I guess do a huge amount else. So it wasn't like a main distributor or anything like that coming out of defense. So I guess I want to see how that all works in terms of her role and if she can score consistently well with those other forwards. But I don't mind the shout against the Saints. So she could have some intercepts there. Might get involved in some plus. We say plus sixes, but plus sevens on game day squad. Might get involved a little bit of that. So yeah, don't mind the shout to start round one, particularly if you want to go a little bit unique and not go for Goldsworthy.
Yeah, and yes, I've not gone Goldsworthy or Malloy in my forward line. But yeah, and I've gone Sparkus as my mid six, which I think is probably the main midfield position that we'll be talking about most of the season. Now, what about you? And I'll just see if I can bring up your team here now. Yeah, there we go. Talk us through your decision making.
Yeah, so this is obviously my starter squad for those watching along at home. Obviously, I've still got to get a couple of sort of cards with rarities and stuff to put in classics. I guess I didn't have my complete side yet, but obviously got Lucas Rod, Thomas, Randall, Watson, Swanson, Conan, and Ella Heads there. Neve McLaughlin was probably the one that had sort of just outside that if I wanted to change someone in there, it could be Neve McLaughlin coming in. The midfield for me, I felt like picked itself a bit this week with Marinoff, Garner, Riddell, Rowbottom, Bowers. And then I've gone for Laura Gardner. Looked very good in the Pracky game, and I think she's going to perform quite well. But again, as we said, right, there's 10 mids. You could probably play it at M5, M6 any given week. Strom and Wales, I think, are the two probably the vanilla rucks to start the season, particularly obviously Strom's a lock, and I think Lucy Wales will go well again this year. And I have gone for Goldsworthy. Probably just don't want to miss out on a potential ceiling, but I definitely like the play, though, of fading her. I just don't know if I love someone enough in the forward line to put them in over Goldsworthy just to start the season. Then, Gould, Maloney, O'Loughlin, Stannett, too good. And then I've gone Montana Ham on the bench there. She's got this midfield. I think she can score quite well. So that is how we're looking for round one. Hopefully, you can get off to a good start.
Yeah, and the thing with the forward role or forward position is if they've got a midfield role, they don't have to go big in the midfield. They just have to go all right in the midfield to then make the forward game day squad position valuable.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So I like that call. Now, that's basically it for the episode. What we'll quickly do now, though, is we're just going to draw the winner of the 9-player rare pack from last episode. We'll be running a similar thing where if you comment and like the stream or video, whatever version you're watching, you'll enter into the competition to win it again on either of the channels. But for last week, because it was a preseason game episode, there weren't a heap of entries, but we'll just get the wheel going.
Let's have a look. There we go.
Tony's Legends. All right, Tony, if you just jump into the DMs, I'll flick you the code for the pack. But everyone, that's a wrap. So thank you for watching. Do you have any shout outs, code wise, anything like that?
Oh, yeah, just if you haven't registered to Game Day Squad, make sure you guys do it. It's obviously, as we always say, it's free to play and a heap of fun. And it's not obviously just focused on AFLW. You got obviously AFL, NFL, sorry, not NFL, NRL. Maybe one day we might have NFL on there. Cal's got NFL bloody in my head now. But there's a host of other sports. Premier League starts this Saturday as well. And if you use code BALLSDT, you get yourself some free packs for whatever sport you choose to begin the year. So make sure you guys get signed up and use the code and get involved. And you can follow me at BallsDT across the socials and at AFL Fantasy Fans on X and to get involved in a heap of stuff. But mate, looking forward to the season, obviously, along with you on Game Day Squad for the show, and looking forward to AFLW for hopefully a very big season.
Yeah, beautiful. And if it hadn't already been obvious, Bales and I will be doing the show for the season, which is very exciting. So plenty to talk about. I'm just excited to start watching games. So
Yep.
thank you very much. I know you've got to jump onto another stream now, so we'll wrap it up there. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
So yeah.